In October 2016, for the first time in at least 400 years, scientists opened the tomb that Christian tradition has identified for 17 centuries as the place where Jesus of Nazareth was buried and rose from the dead. What they found beneath the layers of marble left them in silence. It was not what they expected. It was much older, and it changed what we thought we knew about the history of this place. What nobody tells you is this. Beneath the marble slab covering the tomb's surface, the scientists found a second marble slab nobody knew existed. On that second slab, a cross had been engraved. Mortar analysis dated it to the 4th century AD, the age of Constantine. It was the first time it had been seen since the 16th century. Subscribe if you want the science behind the most visited tomb in the world explained honestly. The button is right below the video. The Edicule, from the Latin edicula, small house, is the marble structure at the center of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. It is approximately 9 meters long, 6 wide, and 12 high. It is covered in pink and gold marble in late neoclassical style, and covers what Christian tradition has identified since the 4th century as the tomb of Jesus. The structure we see today was built in 1810 after a fire in 1808 destroyed the previous Crusader-era edicule. Before that medieval edicule, there was one from the Constantinian period of the 4th century. And beneath all of them, beneath the marble, beneath the centuries of interventions, is the rock. The problem is that nobody had been able to examine that rock in centuries. The last time anyone attempted to lift the marble slab covering the tomb's surface was in the 16th century, during the mandate of the Ottoman governor of Jerusalem. The reports of that attempt, preserved in the oral tradition of the communities that guard the sepulchre, say the governor ordered the excavation stopped because the smell and vapors coming from inside were unbearable. Since then, the slab remained untouched. Layer after layer of marble, cement, and mortar was built over it. The small house kept growing outward, while the interior became more and more sealed. In 2015, engineers from the Georgia Institute of Technology arrived to perform a routine structural inspection of the edicule. What their measurements revealed was not routine at all. The structure was in imminent danger of collapse. The walls were tilting. The marble was deforming. The cement holding everything together was decomposing. Without immediate intervention, the most visited monument in the Christian world could collapse on itself. The Holy Sepulchre is shared by 6 distinct Christian communities: Greek Orthodox, Catholic, Armenian, Coptic, Syriac, and Ethiopian, under a diplomatic agreement called the Status Quo, signed in 1852. No modification to the building can be made without the consent of all affected communities, and the communities rarely agree on anything. The Georgia Tech report changed the equation. When the risk is total collapse, even parties that aren't speaking start listening. In 2016, the 6 communities authorized a restoration of the edicule. The work was entrusted to Professor Antonia Moropoulou and her team from the National Technical University of Athens. Moropoulou is one of the world's most recognized experts in conservation of historic buildings. She has directed restorations of monuments in Greece, Cyprus, the Vatican, and other countries. But she had never directed anything like this. Funding. Approximately $4 million was provided by King Abdullah II of Jordan, the Palestinian Authority, and private donors from around the world. The team began restoration work in May 2016. They cleaned the exterior, reinforced the walls, applied conservation mortar to the cracks. And then came the moment nobody had anticipated out loud: what was beneath the slab. On the night of the 26th of October 2016, at 11 p.m., Moropoulou's team lifted the modern marble cover. It was the first time in at least 400 years, possibly much longer. The space that opened beneath had centuries of dust, hardened mortar, accumulated material. The technicians worked slowly, documenting each layer with photographs and measurements. If this scientific examination of Jesus' tomb has you on the edge of your seat, leave your like now. And share this video with someone who wants biblical archaeology explained as it actually happened. And then they found the second slab, a gray marble slab, older than the outer one, a slab nobody on the team knew existed. a slab that was directly beneath the surface cover and clearly preceded the 1810 structure by centuries. On that second slab, a cross had been engraved. Not decorative, not added later. Engraved in the stone as part of the slab itself, in the type of markings that medieval or early Christian builders left to identify a sacred place. The team documented everything carefully. Mortar samples between the two slabs were sent to the laboratory for analysis. The thermoluminescence dating results. The technique that measures when a material was last heated indicated that the mortar between the surface slab and the gray slab was deposited around 1550 AD. That confirmed the gray slab predated the Ottoman reconstruction of the edicule. But the more important question was what lay beneath the gray slab. The team continued. The gray slab was lifted with extreme care. And beneath it, for the first time in centuries, the rock appeared. Not marble, not cement, not mortar. Original limestone. The stone surface on which everything rests. The team remained in silence for several seconds. What they were seeing was not just stone. It was the rock that, if the historical tradition is correct, had been in contact with the body of Jesus of Nazareth. Mortar analysis conducted with thermoluminescence dating on the material between the gray slab and the original rock produced a date of approximately 345 AD. The year 345 corresponds exactly to the period of Emperor Constantine and his mother Helena, the era when, according to the historical records of Eusebius of Caesarea, the first church was built over the tomb identified as Jesus' sepulchre. This means the gray slab with the engraved cross was placed in the 4th century in Constantine's era and remained intact for 1,600 years beneath all subsequent construction. The rock beneath that slab was dated by petrographic analysis as consistent with the limestone formations of 1st century quarries in the area of Jerusalem. Its type corresponds exactly to the Jewish tombs of the Second Temple period that archaeologists have identified in the area. The analyses also revealed information about the tomb itself. The tomb is of the type known as archaeology, an arch-roofed niche carved into the rock, the predominant burial style of the Jewish elite during the Second Temple period between the 1st century BC and 1st century AD. This type of tomb is exactly what the Gospels describe. A new tomb in a garden, never before used. The convergent data set. The 1st century limestone. The 4th century mortar. The tomb type. The location outside the 1st century walls of Jerusalem. Produced the conclusion Meropoulou described in National Geographic. What we found confirms that the site has uninterrupted continuity from Constantine's era to the present, and that the rock is authentically a tomb of the correct period. To understand the significance of the 2016 findings, you need to understand how this site came to be identified as the tomb of Jesus in the first place, and why modern archaeologists consider it the most serious candidate. The first argument is topographic. The most common objection to the Holy Sepulchre's authenticity is that it appears to be inside the current walls of Jerusalem, and Roman crucifixions took place outside the city according to Jewish burial customs. If the site is inside the walls, how can it be authentic? The answer is archaeological. The current walls of Jerusalem are not the 1st century walls. The walls we see today were built by the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century. Archaeological excavations by Kathleen Kenyon in the 1960s demonstrated that the area of the Holy Sepulchre was outside the walls of 1st century Jerusalem. The topographic argument, far from invalidating the site, confirms it. The second argument is historical. The area was covered by a pagan shrine of Emperor Hadrian around 135 AD after the destruction of Jerusalem. When Empress Helena arrived at the site in 325, local Christians pointed to the pagan temple as the marker of the place it was trying to suppress. Helena ordered the temple demolished. And under the debris of the artificial fill, the carved rock of the tomb appeared. Eusebius of Caesarea, the contemporary historian of the event, describes the discovery with astonishment. The third argument is negative. No other site in Jerusalem has a comparable history of continuous identification as the tomb of Jesus from the 1st century to the present. We have examined today the scientific findings of the 2016 Edicule restoration with the same precision Maropoulou's team applied to their analyses. What the science can say. The rock beneath the tomb is 1st century limestone, consistent with Jerusalem's geological formations. The gray slab with the engraved cross was placed in the 4th century, in Constantine's era. The tomb is of the archaeology type characteristic, of elite burial in the Second Temple period. The site is in the correct topographic location outside the 1st century walls of Jerusalem, and the chain of continuous identification from the 1st century to today is the most solid of any site proposed as the tomb of Jesus. What the science cannot say. Whether this is the exact location where Jesus of Nazareth was buried. Archaeology can date rocks and mortars. It cannot identify the name of the man who was placed on a particular rock 2,000 years ago. That is the honest frontier of what the scientific evidence can establish, and it is important to maintain it. But there is something this discovery does change for everyone. It makes it harder to dismiss the site casually. For centuries, the criticism of the Holy Sepulchre has been that it is a medieval construction on an arbitrary site. What the 2016 analysis shows is that beneath the medieval layers, there is a continuity that reaches the 4th century, that reaches the period of Constantine, which is exactly when the historical records say the tomb was identified. Professor Maropoulou expressed it with the precision that characterizes her scientific work. We can say with confidence that this is authentically a tomb of the correct period, in the correct location, with uninterrupted historical continuity from Constantine's era. The rest. Each person must decide for themselves. That is exactly what science does well. It establishes the limits of the fact and delivers the remaining question to whoever receives it. See you in the next one.